He's a teacher, a servant of God, Reverend Professor Eric Anu.
In the kingdom of God, it's not addition, it is what? Multiplication.
A messenger of the gospel of Jesus Christ and to the world of this end time to liberate God's children from the powers of darkness. Now to today's message.
Greetings. Today we want to talk about the Passover event. The Passover event is important for both Christians and also for Jews in their religious setup. And so to do this, we want to focus on Exodus chapter 12, verses 3 to 4, and also 7 to 13. We're still continuing our series on the book of Exodus. And we want to look at Exodus chapter 12, verse 3 to 4 and 7 to 13, focusing on the Passover event. And I read, "Announce to the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of the month, each family must choose a lamb or a young goat for a sacrifice, one animal for each household. If a family is too small to eat a whole animal, let them share with another family in the neighborhood. Divide the animal according to the size of each family and how much they can eat. They are to take some of the blood and smear it on the sides and top of the door frames of the houses where they eat the animal. That same night, they must roast the meat over a fire and eat it along with bitter salad greens and bread made without yeast. Do not eat any of the meat raw or boiled in water. The whole animal, including the head, legs, internal organs, must be roasted over a fire. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. Burn whatever is not eaten before. These are your instructions for eating the animal. Be fully dressed, wear your sandals, and carry your walking stick in your hand. Eat the meal with urgency, for this is the Lord's Passover. On that night, I will pass through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn son and firstborn male animal in the land of Egypt. I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt, for I am the Lord. But the blood on your doorposts will serve as a sign, marking the houses where you are staying. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. This plague of death will not touch you when I strike the land of Egypt." And today, to look at the Passover event which happened in Israel, which has a very strong link with the communion that we celebrate as Christians, I want to look at components of the Passover event which are very important for us as Christians. I want to look at the communal nature, the fact that it's a meal that is consumed, there's completeness, there's a cross, there's a call, and there's contract. The first is communal. If you look at the Passover event, it involves the eating of a meal, and this meal is a communal one. It is not an individual meal, it is a communal meal. Exodus chapter 12, verse 3 and 4 says, "Announce to the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each family must choose a lamb or a young goat for a sacrifice, one animal for each household. If a family is too small to eat a whole animal, let them share with another family in the neighborhood. Divide the animal according to the size of each family and how much they can eat. So the Passover, which is almost the same as the communion that we take, because Jesus celebrated the Passover and told us that we should continue celebrating this Passover event, which came to be known as the communion. The important thing is that it is a fellowship meal to strengthen our communion or bond with each other. They were to, if the family is too small, they should have other people joining them to celebrate. So the communion itself, as we eat it, is not medicine that you keep and be drinking it in bits to heal you. This is a communal meal. So the Israelites were to come together and celebrate. It's not an individual meal like a person. They say even if the family is too small, they should join with other families. So it means that you cannot say you celebrate the Lord's Supper on your own. You buy your drink, you take it home, and you drink it. That is not the essence of the Passover meal, which is the Lord's Supper that the Lord said we should celebrate. It is not a drug for warding off evil spirits. It is actually a communal fellowship meal. So we have to go to the church and celebrate it there. We don't have to buy the drink and take it home and then say we are doing communion. No, it is not what the Passover is all about. It is not what the Lord's Supper is all about. 2, it is consumption of the Passover. It is the consumption of a meal which marks the Passover celebration. Exodus 12:7 says, they are to take some of the blood and smear it on the sides and top of the door frames of the houses where they eat the animal. And thus you shall eat it. So the lamb which is to be slaughtered is to be eaten. It is not only for us to roast it and prepare the meal and look at it. It has to be eaten. It says the Paschal lamb was not killed in order to be looked at only, but to be eaten. And our Lord Jesus Christ has not been slain merely that we may hear about him and talk about him and think about him, but that we may feed upon him. Just as we do at the communion as a metaphor that we have consumed Christ and he has taken his abode in us and our being. Similarly, the consumption of the Passover meal is an establishment of belief and a trust in God's protection and provision for the Israelites. So this command is, this is my body, take, eat. This is my blood, take, drink. You don't look at it and you don't decide that you won't do it. It will not have effect on you. You need to partake in the Passover, which is our communion. It's also completeness. It shows completeness, not just consumption. We take the body and the blood of Christ and we believe that that's what we have taken. But thirdly, it is also completeness of the eating process. Exodus 12:9b says, the whole animal, including the head, the legs, and internal organs, must be roasted over fire. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. Let none of it remain until morning. The Passover lamb had to be eaten completely. There's completeness in this. A family had to totally consume the sacrifice. The idea behind eating it all was that you had to take it all then and not store up some of it, because your rescue should be a holistic rescue. You can't do it in bits. Like if you go to communion, you can't say that I take the bread and then I take a bit today, then I take the next time I take the bit, I take the drink a bit. Then they give it to you, it's a whole drink, you drink it. They give it to you, it's a whole bread, you take it. It was for right and now. And you had to receive all of it without thinking you could take a bit then and come back to take the rest later. When we take all of Jesus, not just parts that pleases us, complete belief, complete acceptance without holding back. So that is what we are being to complete belief. Take my body, you take the whole body. Take my blood, the whole blood, and you have the life of Christ flowing in you, and you have the abundance you are looking for. Fourthly, you take it in readiness to cross over. There's faith involved. Exodus 12:11 says, "These are your instructions for eating this animal. Be fully dressed, wear your sandals, and carry your walking stick in your hand. Eat the meal with urgency, with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand." The Passover lamb had to be eaten by faith, trusting that the deliverance promised to Israel was present and that they would walk in that deliverance immediately. So they are ready to move into their deliverance. You are crossing. You are crossing because you know that by faith you're going to reach the land that God has given you. Faith was essential to the keeping of the Passover. By faith, Moses, kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. So faith is needed to walk with God in this world that we are imprisoned by politicians and the economic situations, which is so appalling. So communion is taken in readiness for God's intervention. Anytime you take the communion, you are crossing over by faith to whatever promised land you have for yourself. It is God's stake. It is not ours. Exodus 12:11 says, "For this is the Lord's Passover." It is the Lord's Passover. The Passover was the Lord's in the sense that He provided it. It is the Lord's prerogative. It is the Lord's action point as a rescuer to deliverer of Israel from the plague of the firstborn. As an institution, the Passover is to remember God's rescue and deliverance for Israel through every generation, as a powerful drama acting out the perfect sacrifice and rescue. So when we talk about the Passover, it is God who provided. It is God who instructed. It is God who instructed. So when we talk about the communion, we say it is Holy Communion. It is God, the Holy One, who instituted it. So we are to have that understanding that it is God's own and it is not our own. It's also a contract. It's a contractual event, the Passover. Exodus 12:13b says, "When I see the blood, I will pass over you." It's a contract. I need to see the blood, then I'll pass over. When I see the blood, I'll pass over. For Israel to be spared the judgment on the firstborn, they had to apply the blood just as God said they should. The blood of the lamb was essential to what God required. If an Israelite home didn't believe in the power of the blood of the lamb, they could sacrifice the lamb and eat it, but they would still be visited by judgment. If an Egyptian home did believe in the power of the blood of the lamb and made a proper Passover sacrifice, they would be spared the judgment. An intellectual agreement with what God said about the blood was not enough. They actually had to do what God said must be done with the blood. It was a contract. "I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, and I will spare you." God regarded Israel as his firstborn, and he favored them. But he favored them not to do everything. I need to see the blood. I see the blood, that's a contract. I will pass over. That is the blood of the covenant that God established with his people. So it is very important for us to ask ourselves questions. Who is eligible for this passing over? Who is worthy to take the communion? Who should take the communion when I'm not at peace? Should I take the communion when I'm not at peace with my neighbor? Should those visiting with us share? When should we serve this meal? Should the communion be served outside group settings? I want to tell you that God himself is faithful enough. He says it's a holy communion, and this holy communion is a feast of love, a memorial of faith. a prophecy of hope. May God bless you as you take this communion and you pass over by faith to the promised land that God has given to you. It is for you. Every visitor who is a Christian and he believes in the blood of Christ will benefit from this. And I end by saying it is a feast of love, a memorial of faith, and a prophecy of hope. God bless you.
Thank you for watching. Hope you are blessed with this message. To get in touch with other messages of the servants of God, follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel.